what harms most first responders is their inability to feel anything because of the years protection mechanism that we provide for ourselves subconsciously or unconsciously around the feeling centers. So we don't feel anything at all. That's why those things you're mentioning, like drugs, alcohol, and pornography, those are the extremes to try to feel something. And so I think we kind of like understand what's really going on here. What's the map? If we don't have a map, we are unable to find our way through this dark forest we find ourselves in. And it's kind of like this accordion effect. Like sometimes you're in a contraction state, and that's just how it is. And now you're in an expansion state. And through that, you can make music if you'd like, but we always resist that contraction state. And it's the most challenging for everyone, but that's the opportunity of growth.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Gamma Seeker broadcast. Today I have with you Jonathan Vargas. Now, this is a firefighter who has been training with me quite a bit, and he is dealing with something that is completely relatable for most of us, which is a majority of joint issues, but still needing to show up for work. After getting to know him a little bit on the Grabs Live podcast, we've been chatting back and forth on a weekly basis. And I just really appreciate, John, how your brain works, how you've troubleshooted pain without reaching for a pill. And I feel like that troubleshooting method of I'm in pain, what can I do? I still need to navigate work is a delicate one, and it's a learned one. And you've really impressed me with the questions that you've been asking as we've been training together, things to expedite it. And I know you're still navigating it. And I just wanted to kind of take a snapshot and highlight what I think is an A+ client, like someone who is thinking their way, using your own sovereignty and curiosity within your body to move through different feelings. And now that I've learned more about you, I know that you've really cultivated this awareness and this perception within yourself. And I think part of that journey could use a voice to it here on this channel. So thanks for taking the time with me today.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. And you said it correctly, where it is a journey and it does take a bit of precision with curiosity. I think those things help. But I'm the number one client for people because I do listen and I will follow orders and then use that sovereign space in conjunction, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. So for people that don't know, you are new to this journey. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are now and what it's been like in your body, maybe your understanding of it, and then how that's evolved a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I work for the City of Los Angeles Fire Department. I'm a firefighter paramedic, and I've been doing this for the LAFD for 9 years now. And then prior to that, I worked for the Forest Service fighting wildfires across the western side of the United States from Washington, Oregon, Colorado, kind of jumping out of helicopters, getting placed in remote locations, kind of like I would say, special ops for special forces for firefighting. That's kind of what that was. And then I was, doing other paramedic work. I've been a paramedic for like 11, 12 years now. And so my body over the period of time, I used to just exercise vigorously to just do the job because it's very active. And the things we do, we have sometimes D1 athletes and even professional athletes come and go through the drill tower and do the training we do. And they put the gear on and it's like kryptonite to them. It's really tough to do the work we have. So it takes a lot of grit and you have to have a mental capacity to handle, I would say heat is a tough one for people because of the stuff you put on. People get claustrophobic. And then there's also the factor of pushing past a threshold with yourself, physically, mentally, emotionally. So that's kind of like what I've come down to, but I've had to shut off my emotional transmission for a very long time. So going backwards, I had to learn to fine tune that for myself to be functional at home in a home life. Because if I come home and I act like an asshole, no one's gonna want to be around me,
Being a first responder, that is a pretty intense voltage swing. So I've done this experiment of replacing the word nervous system regulation with voltage regulation, because that's what the nervous system is moving. It's moving our electrical voltage. And if we for a moment can even like conjecture on putting myself in the idea of a first responder. Like what you have arrived for on scene as a paramedic is really intense voltage. I'm sure all of you feels very like present and conscious. And then you're trained to not scream and not to overreact. You're trained to kind of go through a sequence and stay neutral. And it's an crazy, beautiful thing that you guys are capable of grounding and being present for. But then moving away from that, there's a natural calibration. Things have to swing back to balance. And I'm sure it's taken you some time to learn how to swing without losing yourself on this other side. And I imagine for first responders, there's like a bit of a struggle in the beginning with like drugs or alcohol or pornography or whatever numbing devices can you get you back into the state of pleasure. Am I wrong thinking that?
No, you're absolutely correct. I think the only thing is we do carry that voltage like you're talking about, but we'll shut it off or get numb to it. And then now you're just this hardened case of like a mold you've now curated yourself with. So that is what harms most first responders is their inability to feel anything because of the years protection mechanism that we provide for ourselves subconsciously or unconsciously around the feeling centers. So we don't feel anything at all. That's why those things you're mentioning, like drugs, alcohol, and pornography, those are the extremes to try to feel something. So you can grasp some type of experience, and those habits they go through the roof, and then watch it destroy your life. That's usually what happens. And I think it's coming from myself having addiction issues with all of those things. I had to have a concussion at work, an injury on the job that really wrecked me to kind of rethink and form a relationship with my addictions and my afflictions.
It's funny. I had one of those like life-changing concussions myself. I've had 5 concussions.
It fucks you up.
Yeah. But the last one was like a lesson. The other ones were just like being an athlete and like you're in the heat of it. The last one was like I need to like rethink my life a little bit. Like, is this what I should be doing on the weekends? How is this good for me? Can you tell me now about like if work gets really intense, right? Like you find yourself in the heat of an action. I know that you would say that you're maybe numb to the feeling, right? And I'm just gonna philosophize here. If we think of your biofield as this shape, right? And as kids, this open system. So information and energy comes into our brain. There's a negative voltage here. There's a positive voltage at our base. So there's this circulating energy that's moving around us all the time. And when we're sick, it's a little smaller. We're taking in less energy. When we're drunk, it's the same. If we're high, we can kind of change the system so that we're only perceiving what we want, like what's right around us. We can forget about our bills. We can forget about our responsibilities later. And then as we start to express health, this biofield starts to strengthen and gets wider. You pick up on more energy and information. Now, someone that's been attuned and they're open, they walk into what you would call like a Monday morning at the office potentially. How are you recalibrating now without those tools? Like, so you have kind of an impactful, shocking experience. When you pull away from that moment, like what's your way to tune yourself back to neutral?
Well, I can give you a great example. I just had a call like this last week and pretty traumatic. And I think the best answer for your question would be presence, because presence just kind of takes care of everything. And like I had a call, this woman was in a crosswalk and she got hit by a car and she pretty much died in the street. And it was a really busy street. And it was pretty traumatic for everyone, all of us who had showed up, and I think the family was screaming in the middle of the street. It was chaotic, and it was a hit and run. So the truck that hit the woman like took off. So it was a murder scene basically. And like I've worked on determining my presence to be through my heart, like heart-based consciousness, and that's a hard thing to do in the job. And so instead of being numb, now that I've over the years have practiced my own conscious work and conscious intent, like I just was just watching these people screaming, over their dead family member laying in the middle of the street. And I just felt so sad with these people. And I really felt like I was with them, and I just normally I would feel numb to that. Like it's just another call, and one of many that we do in the city of Los Angeles is so busy. And I just allowed myself to feel. And I think that helps kind of work through like understanding that field, because I'm exchanging information with these people. And I'm also having to do a job where I have to be present, grounded, and effective. But there's something in our humanity that is lost where I just let myself be human for once and let myself feel for a second the sadness. And I think we always try to run away from feelings and emotions, that especially the ones we deem bad, because we want to run away from anxiety, we run away from fear or pain, sadness. Let it happen. It was so powerful. And I think that was a transformative moment for myself, because I just was able to be human. I think that's one of the most important factors that's fundamental that we lose sight on.
Wow. Thank you. There was a lot of wisdom in everything you shared there, and thanks for sharing it. I have this like kind of blistering hot memory of I had a cousin, his name was Scotty. He changed his name right before he committed suicide, and we were there the night that it happened. It was really intense for the whole family. And I was like 19. And I remember standing there, and there was no words, like no words can be shared like in those kind of moments. My aunt was like wailing, and I remember praying this like white electric light in between all of us, like a sparkler. So you're talking about like heart coherence and presence, and like what you said, I think very useful. And I just wanted to share like where my mind goes. And it's like, wow, I remember making these like hallucinations of electric lightning in the middle of the room that just kept the energy circulating, that just kept this like center of love in a way. Like the pain that we felt was because of the love that we had. And I often I think of death as this like really good way for us to understand the heaviness within the biofield, like how energetics really do have a texture. Like if emotion is energy in motion, it means that when we've become like too hard, like you're saying, like stone, some of the most like beautiful, capable men in my life, I could apply that to. They are like dense and stubborn, but also consistent and sturdy and like willing to handle all of the emotional energy for the family. And when I see that like bioenergetic field, what we call stable is always vibrating. It's always vibrating. What we call strong is still always vibrating. So when we allow ourselves to feel, it's like there's pliability, there's compression. We're allowing the water within us to ripple with the emotions that are present. And I think it's important to know how to be firm, and it's important to know how to be soft, just like in our body. If we're too soft, we're weak and we don't have enough strength. But if we're too strong without enough softness, then we become kind of like brittle and unelastic. And I think of our emotional body very similarly. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely correct. And we were talking about before on the idea of the biofield in relation to ancient Chinese wisdom cultures. So we were talking about the Jing Shen, and you haven't ever heard that word before. So just to give you a bit of a context, the woman who trained me in Kambo, which is
Mm-hmm.
powerful medicine, we could talk about that too, but woman who trained me in Kambo integrates the work of a chi master named Yansei. And Yansei has something called Ren Shui, which is conscious work with in conjunction with Qigong. And so he had been studying Qi, and what you're referring to is essentially the Qi field is parallel to what the biofield is, that electricity. And he took his study, and most of these teachings normally would be just taught to one student. A Qi master would teach one student, and that would be it. And so they carry these wisdoms and have been passed along for generations, for thousands of years, and these practices. And he saw the world going the way it was, and decided he needed to share this information. So a lot of what I have learned over the years had become a modulation off of what he teaches. And so one of the main components is understanding the chi field and the biofield, and and how to cultivate your life. So the Jing Shen, and Jing meaning essence, lack of a better term for, because sometimes Chinese symbols and the translation doesn't directly correlate to what we refer to on our language, but essence would be the best description. And then you have the Shen, which would be essentially your spiritual mental body. And so those two merge together. Jing, essence, merges and turns into Qi, which is that electrical circuit. And that will constantly be modulating itself and circulating itself throughout the body, throughout outside the body. And then the Shen is really where our conscious mind is operating. And when I'm saying consciousness, it is not the same as the mind. The mind will just pick up like little small pieces here and there, but consciousness really is the master. So anyone who's going through like a life journey of healing, you have these people going off to Peru and drinking ayahuasca, and like people, eating mushrooms and all this stuff, even pharmaceuticals. What you're doing is like these are just small tools that can assist you in your life's journey, but in the end, consciousness is the master. So we have to understand the value in that and place our full attention to what consciousness is, and really to cultivate what that can do for every single person in general. So, I mean, these chi masters, their field is so large that they have these capabilities of doing superhuman activities. And so, they will even create their own chi fields with consciousness. Like Ren Shui will have these retreats, and he creates his own chi field, puts his own information there, and watches people struggle with the information he's placed in that field. So these are types of like practices that are very essential to understanding like our superhuman nature. And this is somewhat subjective for people that are kind of listening. Like, it's very strange for you to hear this, but these are ancient technologies that have been used for thousands of years, and these masters know what they're doing. So it does take time to understand it all, and it takes a practice. So you have to do Qigong to cultivate your Qi field. You have to do the conscious work. And what I mean by conscious work is understanding your patterns that are mostly derived from childhood that run your subconscious. And so doing great conscious work around things can actually cause more turmoil at first. And for me, my wife now did conscious work for the last couple of years, and man, it was like a war in our house where both of our patterns were like fighting each other. But we had to clear those things. They had to come up to the surface for us to witness them and then clear it. So this is like a very small sliver of what's available to us in our field. And within the field is information. So like what you're talking about, this voltage, the voltage carries a channel of information that's available to all of us, but you have to be also capable of listening. And those art forms of like stillness and awareness that will grow for you, and you'll be able to just retrieve information. Like now I can go into a silent meditation and retrieve information from like my sixth, seventh dimension of myself and bring that information back down. And now I'm able to use that information.
So I know that you and I have been on our journeys for a little while. I love everything that you just shared. But if someone's listening to this and they're fresh on the journey, and I feel like my spiritual journey kind of got tipped off with physical journey. I feel like the physical journey brought me right in. My first detox was like a big eye opener, and then reading some more detox literature, and then asking some more questions, finding the books like the Masters of the Far East that do fasting regularly, finding like some literature about the Essenes. It made me crave this like elevated understanding. Like, wow, everybody's chasing like money and power, but it seems like there's this other form of power that comes with infinite joy and infinite understanding and contentment and this like jovial nature. So I kind of got into medicine and these groups. So chasing my health brought me right into elevating my consciousness. I mean, as a kid, I really loved the idea of being the best at whatever it is I was going to be. So you can say maybe it was younger, but when you say focusing on consciousness, I feel like this is great advice, but let's break it into like the breadcrumb. What would that look like for an 18-year-old boy who's starting college or man that wants to follow a more divine masculine way because they're disenchanted perhaps with like the basic route that's presented? If they wanted to elevate their consciousness, what's your first couple steps that you would drive them towards?
That's a pretty good question. And coming from a field that is so like logical, point A to point Z, so linear, and having to unravel that for myself, I totally get it. And it's a journey into the mystery of it all. So there's no end game here. That's what I want people to always rearrange their thinking around this, their perspective. There's no end game. And we're always fixated on running away from something when that very act of running away from something is the very act of that something going towards you. So it's like this Chinese finger trap of like understanding the universal laws and like these fundamental natural laws that are just really the foundation of everything. I think going back to fundamentals is the most important thing to do. So talking to an 18-year-old boy, if you're going to start something or try to have some type of self-improvement, you have to rearrange your thinking around what those laws are, those fundamental laws are that are creating your reality. So I would always tell people to start with what is disturbing you. Anything that is disturbing you is a clue. It's a doorway of something that's deeper. So whatever is deeper is like we always see a tail that's kind of wagging under like the bed, right? Once you pull that tail, you have this whole just mutt that's under there, doing whatever it's doing. But so like we have to take that guidance, and then usually what's disturbing us, we don't want to be disturbed. So it's going to assist you in your process. And so I think when you use that as a change in perspective, like, oh, this is actually a clue. This could lead me to my relationship with my father or my relationship with my mother. And this is how I felt when I was 8 years old. Like these things are the root of why you are the way you are. So these patterns are essentially going to want to make noise in your mind and your body because they want to get attention because you haven't acknowledged something from the past or you haven't witnessed something that needs to be more. And
Okay.
so like that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to like chart out what that would actually look like. So like a quiet, still room where you're questioning yourself inside, like what's bothering you. It's funny. You sound like a hypnotherapist. Like when you're
Yeah.
talking about unwinding those patterns, like you sound like a theta therapist who like drops people, and then it's like, okay, now witness the frame. Where is that tension coming from? Is that something that you do actually, or something that
Yeah,
you've
I
done?
do as well. I do past life regressions for people as well. Been doing that for a few years. So we put
Okay.
them in a theta state, and then I will walk someone through an experience and basically go through those different dimensional fields or planes of consciousness, and we can access information.
So I had two of my coaches this weekend at an event, and it was the first time that they had ever been around a hypnotherapist. And she was a good one, and she read the room so beautifully. And I had to explain to Angelina what was happening because I was like, if you think she's wrong, I want you to ask a question. And she did. And she was like, she turned around. She's like, could she possibly have known? And I was like, okay, that's great. So inside of this biofield, inside of this chi field, there is little rivers, little eddies that all contain information. The outer edge of this field is our birth state, like how we were in the embryo. There's like history and resonance stored. If we were to change the toroid field and look at it like this way, you'll notice that there's 12 rays of light, kind of aligns with our astrological wheel. And each of these rays is actually connected to our magnetic resonance with one of the planets. So really good hypnotherapists, really good psychics, really good mediums have become acquainted with a language or a sequence to read the field that is around us. So some people have this uncanny ability to like read childhood trauma, and it happens uniquely to each system, but there's a few ways that people interact with this and read it. I think hypnotherapists are the most magical. To me, it's like a psychic entrancement that you become familiar with, and it's like you guys just progressively get better. the older you are, the more bodies and tensions you felt within the field, the better the language gets. But there's also biofield tuners that use tuning forks to like around your body to find tension within the field or lax within the field. And the note will actually change. And that's a really beautiful way for like a newbie to experience tension within the field. Same with kinesthesiology, which is used by a lot of doctors now to test supplements, to test allergies, to test timing for certain things with someone's body. You're testing your magnetic field. And that's when people do those truth tests with their fingers, or they hold on to a piece of fruit and then they push down on the arm. These are all different ways that people communicate with it. Okay, so for you, do you think that you started with silence and stillness and reflection? Because hypnotherapy is pretty advanced without a guide. Is that like the first piece of advice we're going to guide people to?
My path was a way different. I mean, I was really sick and with my concussion stuff. And so my unraveling was extreme. So because I had such an extreme upheaval, I required extreme healing.
Hmm.
And so through that process, I just started to understand my gifts that I was running away from essentially. Like I always had an extremely sensitive body. So I can sense things and I didn't know how to control that. So I would usually taper it down with alcohol because I would feel everything. And so that was my way of coping until I had my concussion. I had to quit drinking. And so because the drinking was affecting my head, essentially, my brain trauma. So and I also believe from the brain trauma, it activated something within me. Almost like this like you hear stories of people hitting their head and like they become like this savant, like I really do believe after my concussion things changed dramatically on a spiritual level and I just know things without even putting words to it and that's why I'm really beneficial at helping people work through trauma because I can help someone work somatically through the body and just know exactly what is there, the information in their body. And it's a constant practice. Like I have to have a daily practice in order to understand my own field. And when you're holding that little example of the biofield, that the middle of it is like a spindle. And so
Mm-hmm.
that spindle is essentially a conduit of if you understand electricity, you have like small conduits, you have large conduits, and so it's really up to you if you want to grow that conduit. And so putting this into some type of perspective too, like we all carry this stuff. It depends on how you channel it. So if I can give you a great example, it's like oil. When oil was found, right, it's a huge geyser and it's just spitting up oil all over the place. It's getting all over the place. It's messy. If you know how to channel that, now you can use it for energy. And you have now machines that are pulling oil out of the ground. And so that's a great concept to kind of get an idea around how to cultivate that spindle, that conduit, and enlarge it. And then you can now use it with conscious effort to your ability to use it for things like natural gifts and perception. And now you're able to carry more of that frequency. So you're not bogged down as much by G or whatever that is these man-made frequencies, because those do affect the human organism. And it depends on it, you're really the eye of the beholder. If you want to enhance your abilities, then doing things like Kundalini yoga and doing things like Qigong really help you to understand, first of all, your own frequency. Because when you're in a room with other people and you can feel someone else's anxiety, you know exactly it's their anxiety, it's not yours, if you know how to cultivate your own field. And so it's really like a path of self mastery and a path of like empowerment. And so it's just it's a dedication, on what you want essentially.
It's funny. I'm always trying to make it into an equation. It's like, okay, if the field can be amplified with electrons by like grounding and good food and good water and like good words, right? And then the meditation practices. So silence and stillness and self reflection, asking yourself the deeper questions of where is there tension and like, how can I reframe my reality so that I feel like a champion? I don't feel like a victim. which is always just like a nuanced art. So to me, it's the silence and stillness helps us remove the tension within the field. And then these tools that we have, like Qigong, like being outside, is amplifiers to this energy. And then we still need to control our presence day to day, which is kind of like, if you're not draining energy because you've taken care of these tensions, this field starts to get a little bit bigger. Then when you start doing the right things, that's when you start to become more amplified and like a little, I like to use the word mighty, because like I'm a small person, but I feel like I show up energetically in a palpable kind of way. And I like the word mighty for that, because it's not particularly wise. It's not particularly strong. It's just like there's a presence within the field. As a performer, as an athlete, I think that is one of the most intense things to train, so that you belong. But swag is there. I guess the kids now use the word riz, but I'm like, oh yeah, that's what swag is. Like, we all have our own language for what are we trying to identify with that word though, other than the electromagnetic body, like that sense of swag, that sense of confidence, the word riz. It's like we're talking about the unseen field. And as a kid, you're hyper fixated on the people that have this magnetic charge because they feel different. Everybody kind of falls into like a normal mom and dad basic bucket. And then occasionally you're around like a cool uncle and you're like, wow, what does he do? Because he has a different voltage. I think this language talking about the things between the unseen can be incredibly healing for all of us. How we relate to dating, how we relate to marriage, how we relate to vibrations. It can start coming out of this box of like, oh, it's a vibe. And it's like, no, actually it's literally, is it small or is it big? Is it heavy or is it light? Is it balanced? Does it feel stuck? Do you feel kind of like a brick wall? Are you ready to move out of that? So I think our real strength is found in that softness and that fluidity. It makes you susceptible at the same time, because like we are open systems. So curious, you've mentioned a few times that you are a distributor of a certain medicine, and I have my own questions there. So can you give us like a rough draft of what that even means or looks like?
You're talking about Cambo. Is that correct?
Is it called Cambo? I've been calling it Kambo.
Yeah, Kambo. I mean, if you're in America, you're going to call it Cambo. If you're from Peru, you're going to call it Kambo.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that medicine's amazing. It saved my life. It was like, I can give you like a general context. Like I was telling you, I was a straight shooter, point A to point B, logical firefighter, alcoholic. And none of this stuff, would come down my path and I'd be like, yeah, that'd be awesome. But when I had hit my head, I was in such a state of desperation that I found Cambo. It kind of landed in my lap. And the short story is that my fiance at the time, she was doing Cambo because she had issues with her menstrual cycle and she was addicted to cocaine, just trauma, and she was going through yoga teacher training. And then, she was telling me about it and she was like, hey, you should go do Cambo. I think it's going to help your concussion stuff. And at the time I was, still fighting these demons, and my nervous system was so jacked up and dysregulated, and I had so many issues going on. I had anxiety attacks. I had panic attacks where I'd go catatonic, and I was heavily depressed to the point where I was going to commit suicide. So that's how bad it was for me. And I finally had like this really bad panic attack in a restaurant, and I didn't want to call 911. I was like, hell no, I'm not going to the hospital. I know what this is. And so the next day I told my fiance, I'm going to go do Cambo. And so what it essentially was, or what it is you put this frog medicine on your skin and you throw up in a bucket for about 20, 30 minutes. And so when I was first told this, I was just like, dude, I'm not going to be doing that. There's no way in hell I'm going to be doing Cambo. So, but through desperation, I wanted to find some type of inspiration. And so I ended up doing Cambo, and sure enough, within the first couple sessions, it started reversing all my symptoms. And it started to rewire my nervous system. And when I first did it, I sat next to a 9-year-old boy who was doing it with me. So I was like, okay, I got to get out of my own head and I got to stop.
If he can do it, you can do it.
Yeah. And so the story with this little boy is that his mom was doing it and his mom was really depressed. And so he saw his mom, and he went up to her one morning and was like, "Hey, whatever you're doing, I'm doing it with you because I can see the change in you." And so after a few that was his third session when it was my first time. And so after a while, this medicine started to just really heal my body. It just started to remove candida from my system, overgrowth of candida, which is a fungal overgrowth that I didn't know I had. It started to remove viruses from my system that I didn't know exist, parasites, and it works on peptides. So these peptides, there's 13 of them. Some people say 11, but there's around 13. And they go in through the lymphatic system, and it cleans out the lymph in the body, and it removes toxins. So when you're getting sick in Cambo, you're not sick from Cambo, you're sick from your own toxic waste in your body.
So it's
So,
rejecting your lymph. It's like bleh to your lymph in a way.
well, that's its way of entering the system. It'll go
Okay.
into the gut biome, into the colon, and it'll also go to the nervous system. And so there's certain peptides that are specifically entering the system. And then, so one of them is used for blood pressure, and one of them is used for cancer. It's been able to reduce tumor growth and also reverse cancer. It also attacks fungal overgrowth in the body or fungal infections. So people use it for different things, for different, I would say, ailments or imbalances. So all Cambo's doing is going to basically scan the system and then find your imbalances and go straight to it. For me, it went straight to my head every single time. And so over a period of time, I was just understanding what this medicine was doing, and it's intelligent. It's absolutely intelligent. It knows what to do, knows where to go, and it starts to teach you about surrender and letting go. So if you're going to fight it, you're going to have a really tough time, and it'll definitely punish you if you start fighting the medicine. That aspect of surrender, and when we speak of surrender, this is an absolute universal law because the universe it's not static. It's always moving. It's always in flux. And when we try to control things, we're moving against the river. We're trying to push the river and control it. And so that force you're using is actually going to cause you more harm. So when we speak of surrender, it's not like this white flag, like I'm laying down myself, I'm a doormat. That's not what it is. It's actually you're giving into the flow of life, and you're moving with that river. And it's just like when you're watching someone learning how they're gonna swim, like they're just kind of trying to grab the water and it's not working. But when you watch a natural, really good swimmer, they relax. They're using the medium to float and to glide with the water. That's essentially how we're supposed to co-create our life. So Cambo teaches you how to go with the flow. And so over time, the medicine will definitely make you face deep, deep wounds emotionally. And so it took me maybe like around 6, 7 sessions where I actually cried. And I hadn't cried for years. And it started to make me face some deep emotional wounds, like my emotional abandonment wound with my mother and my betrayal wound with my dad. And all these things came up where I was able to witness the information and to just see what I was carrying at a deep subconscious level. And it was just grief. I really, towards the end of your healing process, you realize that you just have so much grief, and there is an opportunity in Cambo to release it. You have this visceral relief, something is leaving your body. You have this emotional recognition of what's there, and you're able to clear it and kind of close a chapter. So I always tell people your process with Cambo is like, it's like you have missing steps when you're climbing up the staircase. And those missing steps, people feel stuck. They feel bogged down. They feel like they're at a dead end in their life. And Cambo is like the railing that helps you pull yourself up past those steps. And so my process with Cambo was transformational. I mean, after a while, I didn't even want to drink alcohol. Like I just would start drinking, and because your body's so pure now, you put bad food in your system or you drink alcohol, it doesn't taste good anymore. You have no desire for it any longer. And so it's really good for addiction. But, Cambo is non-psychoactive. It's legal in the United States. It's legal in I think most countries in the world except for Australia and New Zealand, because those countries are weird as fuck. But they like to control everything in Australia. But I
So
think
Non-psychoactive. So when you're puking, there's no visions. You're just puking.
Well, that's the thing is it's non-psychoactive where you're not taking a substance to where you're having a vision, a visual experience, a journey, but it is considered an entheogen. So entheogens are different from psychedelic medicine in the sense that entheogens are here to help you do your own healing on different planes of consciousness. So an entheogens like ayahuasca would be considered an entheogen. Iboga would be considered an entheogen because these medicines set you up to do your own healing. And so Cambo is non-psychoactive, but it gives you information from your field, what we were started this conversation with, and it sends it to you like an email. You're like, hey, okay,
Yeah.
cool. This is the information that I have. And then you're able to sit with it.
If I could try to explain this for people who haven't had medicine, the way that I explain like microdosing mushrooms would be like a very gentle experience of it is it's like you are merging the water within you back to this vibration. So even like the frog poison needing to be on your body. And then your body calibrates to that new information and it flushes the system. And I feel like the way that the Native American church would divide up medicines and how they affect the field is that mushrooms are the magical children. So they're very like watery and kind of playful and sparkly. Ayahuasca is the wise woman grandmother energy, abuela energy. So it's like deeply medicinal and it kind of rocks your world all of the way. Peyote and tobacco are known as the masculine fathers. Tobacco is really known as like a master plant. And the peyote cactus I don't think is very psychoactive. It's very like in your body. Your heart kind of feels explosive. I wouldn't say it's as intense as ayahuasca. And the vibration of peyote is like a little, it's like dustier, if that makes it like it comes from the desert. There is this sense of kind of like air within it, whereas like mushrooms, I think, are very watery. Ayahuasca is kind of like woody, earthy, mud. And so Kambo is from the frog. How does that differ from Bufo? If you don't mind me asking, if you could speak
Bufo
to it.
is 5-MeO DMT. So DMT has been referred to as the God molecule, and that's where you're able to skyrocket into the etheric realm. And so the problem with that is Bufo, you smoke it and you have a 10-minute experience where you leave your body. And so you're basically projected out into all planes of consciousness. It's like you're diving into and you're grabbing any type of information that's available to you. So Bufo is a bit more, I would say,
you go up and then down, whereas Kambo is like you're taking the body to another level.
Yeah, Cambo is a very conscious medicine. Like you're working within your own consciousness. And Bufo is, I mean, you're not here on this plane of existence. And the thing with Bufo that's different is you're not tethered to the ground. Like ayahuasca, you have a tether that's holding you into the earth plane. Like Bufo, you are not. So there's some discrepancies when people talk about Bufo. Yeah, you'll see the light and you're seeing, the God source consciousness, that frequency is flowing through you. And some people have bad experiences in Bufo. And bad is people just don't understand the information that's there. And they don't understand how to integrate it. They don't understand what's happening. And so it's more like an abrupt experience for 10 minutes. And the whole room, it basically changes. And ayahuasca is different because you're able to kind of be grounded. You're talking, having conversations with the different aspects of yourself. You're having conversations with the grandmother of ayahuasca. And it's a plant. So plants have a language and they have
it's a slow up too. Though I almost feel like with Aya, you're on the rocket ship, but the rocket ship is moving slow enough that your body kind of comes with you. And then when you're at the peak, you're there for a couple hours and it's a slow taper depending on how like relaxed you can stay. I would say acid feels like how you're describing Bufo, but it's longer, but it's kind of like you're taking a roller coaster through where ayahuasca kind of like brings you up and takes you down. Acid kind of feels like you go up, you wiggle around, you're not really attached. And then you come back down. That's been my experience with it. So I'm with you. I think that calibrating to that level, though, takes a little bit of a purpose, a little bit of permission, definitely some guidance. I know that I was coached up in very ceremonial settings and couldn't imagine having like a psychedelic experience like at a music festival, which is where a lot of people like will get curious and they're like, oh, I've heard good things about this thing or another, and like, I'm going to try it in this situation. And that to me feels very dangerous, because that connection to the earth, that connection to silence, that connection to not being in a car, I think that's all a really important play to make the medicine work spiritually, not just use the medicine in whatever facet people find themselves in.
Yeah, I mean, in the medicine world, I think that I think there's a way around it to where, because we put a lot of meaning to things, and we love to identify ourselves with experiences. And so when you're jumping into something like a master plant, because ayahuasca is a master plant, and if you're jumping into that experience, you need to cultivate some type of self mastery within yourself, because it will teach you lessons based on those experiences that you're having. So you put too much meaning around something, this is teaching you something. So you got to learn first how to understand frequency, because everything has a charge to it. So when you're met with an experience and feed it fear, then you will have a fearful experience. And so if you have a sense of love, you will have a loving experience. And so these are all laws that you have to understand. And if you don't understand the laws, then you can have a very, I would say, inexperience. But the good thing is that there's someone who's in charge on that medicine, and it's grandmother ayahuasca, and she's teaching. She's trying to have you be the student, and she's trying to show you things and to give you a chance to rearrange your thinking around a memory, or rearrange your thinking around a perspective you've been stuck around for a very long time. And I think when a lot of people will leave ayahuasca and they don't have the tools to integrate. What I mean by integration, it's just to bring a sense of wholeness and oneness to oneself, because nothing is neither really good or bad. It's that thinking that we put it to it that makes it different. And so it's going from like esoteric knowledge, where esoteric knowledge and wisdom is like stuff that's not really talked about, like chi fields and things that you're really talking about with the voltage system. But then there's a polarity to it, a dualistic wavelength and viewpoint, positive and negative. Beyond esoteric knowledge is mesoteric knowledge, which is oneness, where all things are one. There's no polarity. And so we want to get to the point of peace. Inner peace has everything to do with we are one and the same. We are in a state of oneness, a non-dualistic viewpoint. I mean, look at like society right now. You have the polarization of politics. Like, who do you think designed that for it to be that way? You know what I mean? To have people at each other's throats to cause chaos. And that's all it's there for. But when you go beyond that, you see the big picture. Like, oh, I see what's really going on here. And this is kind of like natural order. If you follow natural order, like the planet doesn't give a shit like what's good or bad. It's going to create storms because it needs to create storms. And anything that's in the way can die off because it needs to. And that's just the law, and then we put a lot of meaning behind it, and we put so much emphasis on, and what is this good or bad? And we get lost in that context. So when we're going into like self-healing, right? Because everyone wants to heal. Everyone wants to feel inner peace. It's a dance. This is a never-ending thing. And we always want to control it. Like I was talking about before, like you're not supposed to control it. It's about learning to glide with the flow of life. And like, I'm still going through my own struggles with my body. That's why I did your program. But I'm learning like what is the proper flow with this compression that I'm doing on my fascia. What is my fascial tissue saying? And so when I ask these different questions, I think I'm learning really that self-mastery with my body. And I think it's just a different approach. Does that make sense?
It's like an athletic approach to the like enhancing our feelings with the voltage. Thank you for sharing all of that. I had a few thoughts come up. I'm trying to collect myself a little bit.
And we talked for like 2 hours in the last episode on my podcast, and it was like we could have talked for a very long time.
Yeah. Seldom have I met someone that's done as much deep exploration. And then I've never, woken up and had to deal with like what your normal 9 to 5 is. I think my life is much more playful. It's like not as heavy. You kind of enter the eye of the storm. So I have a tremendous amount of respect for what it takes for you to calibrate. And what you're saying about polarity, it's just awesome because I myself have found myself reflecting on humanity and giggling because I'm like, we're dying from the positive and negative, the right or wrong, the yes or the no viewpoint. Like we've lived in this analog world of religion where, this is bad and this is good. And then now our generation's really rewriting those boundaries. And how I see it is like a piano. Like death is like this low, dissonant, sad, tragic chord. And like a new baby being born is like the high note. And there's this complexity within everything. And it's not really good or bad. Like I think religion, and this may be unpopular, but like I think a religious mindset is one that was setting people up for governance and control. It wasn't empowering free will. It wasn't empowering our ability to make choices. It was play by these rules so that we all get along. These rules became this is right, this is wrong. Yes, no, good, bad. And that good and bad, based on whatever religion you were taught, has created like unnecessary tension and schism. Because I think religion was invented to replace magic. I think magic and miracles were part of our ancient technology of understanding the electromagnetic field. I think that my ancestors, when they were farming potatoes barefoot, that they had a good sense of where the big potatoes were because they had trained themselves to listen to sounds, to listen to insects, to pay attention to the storms coming through. I think that our body is still hyper tuned to the land and to these, fields that we can't perceive with our eyes, but that absolutely exist. And as we kind of move into this chaos chapter of life, where there's a lot of people that weren't asking questions about government and pharmacology and infinite choice and consciousness like they are right now, and to curiously contemplate the framework that's going to bring us joy, I would really just I ask my friends to say, what is your actual energy field? Like, try to feel it. When you're pissed off, try to feel the shape. And I've been playing with this ferrofluid. And ferrofluid is a magnetic fluid, kind of like, not like iron, looks like iron, really sticky, or oil, I mean. And it's magnetic, and there's these spikes that come off of it. And it's like, when we're angry, don't we kind of feel like this? And then if a child would speak to us when we're pissed off, we can kind of like suck it back in. And then if we're sad and we're crying, isn't that feeling of like imploding, circulating energy, how it moves in? Then when we're happy and enthusiastic, how it expands out. If we were to dial in to the textures of this energetic body and start to listen to it, it's picking up on so much more information than we even realize, and starting just dialoguing with it, just opening a concept of trust, that pit in the bottom of our stomach when we think someone's lying. Is that a hallucination, or is that like a key ingredient to how we make proper choice? And I think we first have to become aware of the tension within our field. Then we have to do certain things to empower it so it's not numb, which to me is, body tension and breath rate. Like if somebody's having a panic attacks to me are like when the voltage and the tension get too high and things start to like seize up. So I love telling people, like, if you can't lay down, squeeze this little acupressure point on both thumbs and then drop your breath rate to 4 if you can lie down. But really, all of us can do that to tune back into this energetic body.
Yeah, anxiety is a weird one because, I saw this guy wear this t-shirt that said, your anxiety is lying to you. It's so true and sometimes, I had to understand what anxiety was for like it's like what it's speaking, the language of it. And sometimes anxiety is not what it is. Sometimes it is an energy and it's a frequency. So like sometimes it's an energy that's coming in that's new because like I had said, like the universe is always in flux. So there's information sometimes it's cosmic that's coming into the system that is not integrated into your system. It's a new information that is even beyond your field. And so when you have that information come in, it can be something that's challenging old paradigms and old systems, old belief systems, and it's uncomfortable. And so I've had those experiences where it wasn't anxiety, it was just change. And so like sometimes change is something we resist, and then that we deem it as anxiety because that's the only language we can put to it. And so when you start speaking the language of frequency, vibration, and sound and light, these are what the universe speaks. And so as you understand those things, you're going to try to do the best you can to emit a good frequency, and the universe will just respond to that. It doesn't respond to anything else. It responds to frequency. So your ability, your determination should always be your frequency. What are you at this point in time? And I've learned through my human experience that it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be angry. And we've put so much demonization to emotions. And instead of putting ourselves into a state of allowing to feel and allowing the human experience to be human. And we do everything we can to avoid the human experience. We try to run away from it. And I'm telling you right now, that's not what it is. You will keep repeating the same lessons unless you give yourself the opportunity to enjoy the human experience. And so like over time, as you learn this, you're like, holy shit, like I am becoming a master of who I am, but only through the trials and errors. And I'm learning to just refine my consciousness. I'm learning to refine my frequency. And in the end, transformation has to be relatable. If you're not in relation to others, you're not in connection to others, like that doesn't mean shit. And I always tell myself like, man, am I relating myself to other people? Am I holier than thou? Like these are the questions I ask because I don't want to be like that. Like I don't come on and speak to others like I have this ultimate poise. I mean, I've been through like the shit, and I've been through down to the point of me wanting to kill myself, so I've been to those low points and I know what it feels like. So that I can bring that and relate to others with compassion. And this is kind of leading into the kind of language of the heart. And because the language of the heart has its own frequency emission, as you know, and that information is multidimensional. It is not linear like the mind is. So our mind can create stories, it can create these illusions. And if we want to escape that and we want to find true inner peace, it comes when we go into our hearts, and our hearts have this capacity to go beyond logic. And I think we're at the pinnacle of time where this is really the work, is where we come from our heart space, and our heart will always be true, and it will always ring true, and will always have a sense of compassion, trust, and like these qualities that go beyond egoic greed, power, and control. So going in context of what you were saying too, like our hearts are able to emit a larger frequency, and that own frequency is tapered differently from the actual human biofield. Even going back to the Jing Shen, the way the Jing Shen is mapped out by these ancient masters is that in the end, you have our informational biofield. And from there, we have our nervous system that is a highway of information and then goes into the heart. And the heart now has this capacity to send more information down to the body, into the meridians, which are these channels of information as well. And from there, we have our fascia, which is carrying electrical charge, and into the organ system. And so all these things have information in them. But in Chinese medicine, what's interesting is like you have everything circulating around organs. So why did they figure out that everything's tapered around organ and meridians? It has nothing, they don't even value brain as part of the organ system. So it's kind of interesting, right? That the brain's not even valued in that. I find that to be really fascinating because they value the information that's found in organ systems rather than logic. And so I think we kind of like understand what's really going on here. What's the map? If we don't have a map, we are unable to find our way through this dark forest we find ourselves in.
It's funny. I think the best example for people to realize this energetic makeup that we have is thinking about falling in love for the first time and how absolutely out of control that feeling is. Like, I describe love as frequency. When you match for the first time ever with someone, there's just like, oh my God, here we are. This is what life is like with resonance. And then occasionally the frequencies would shift. If their energy is up and your energy is down and it feels like there's no love there, there's like an awkward disconnect. It's just because we don't have something that's tuning those people back together. And this could be simply someone like coming home from a gym amped up and someone having a super long day underslept. And it can kind of feel awkward until we sync back up. I'm just trying to add illustration to everything that you're saying because there's a lot of wisdom there. But people that don't feel that field, I don't want them to be like closed off to like, I can't even relate to that, but it's like falling in love. You can relate to that moment of adrenaline where everything vasodilates in your frequency, your breath rate, your voice, your heart rate, your brain waves, your body tension, all of that changes. And that's how I see this field emitting from us. It's a combination of our breath rate, heart rate, brain waves, body tension, how our organs are functioning together. I do enjoy what you just said about the organs being the main thing in Eastern medicine. I didn't really think about how kind of overlooked the brain is. It's just like the brain needs to flow. It's not like the center of all. And that's kind of curious too, because there's so many people that move through decisions logically, but their body is giving them another response to it. Mm. So like a good classic example is a parent who like pushes someone towards a career field that's not actually in that person's heart. And here they're doing all of the things, they're making their decisions based on logic and, wanting to make mom and dad proud, but they're not listening to that inherent language that their body is speaking to them. That comes from like those gut punches and those goosebumps and those opportunities that step by that make you kind of like lose sleep. Those are all visceral parts of how this information comes in. It's not just heady, it's through the substrate of all of these things and how they connect.
Yeah, it's why I really like your program, the fascial flow, because it helps you get into the body and you feel your nervous system is really relaxed because you've allowed yourself to get away from a disassociative state. I've always been a master at disassociating. So all of my practices, my daily practices have everything to do with getting back into the body. And so when you are chipping away at bringing yourself into the body, you now over time have allowed yourself to use that. And it's kind of like this accordion effect. Like sometimes you're in a contraction state and that's just how it is. And now you're in an expansion state. And through that, you can make music if you like, but we always resist that contraction state. And it's the most challenging for everyone, but that's the opportunity of growth. And so I think too, we have to put our language to understand what growth is, because in the Western world, we've designed growth around struggle. We've surrounded it with challenge. And in the context of belief systems, like beliefs hold power. In the end, if you're looking for empowerment and power in your life, beliefs hold power. And so when we believe that we need challenges to grow, then you will attract that in your life. Absolutely. And you need hard workouts in order to get strong. You need to do extreme things to have a sense of self-respect. And that is just a different way of thinking. But we've all, at a collective scale in the Western world, have latched onto it and attached ourselves to that because someone told us at a young age that that's true. And in the end, it's just a belief system. So like, I can give you a context for beliefs right here. I don't know if
yeah, no, I'm into it. I just saw that theta person and I'm like been working on this belief of like, it comes to me effortlessly. Because that's what I'm always seeking in my athletic junctures. It's like, it's cool to train hard, but like what I really want is to create power, momentum, and leverage with effortlessness. So I'm trying to drag that focus over. So please walk me through how you do this.
So just to give people a context of beliefs, right? There's a riddle found in, I don't know if you watch Game of Thrones. Have you ever watched Game of Thrones?
I did it up until like season 6 and the torture scenes started to infect my dreams and I had to cut out.
Well, this is a great riddle that's done, I think it's like season 2, whatever. They have two characters, and one is the eunuch, and he's just kind of like this guy who's scheming the the throne, right? He's just always kind of in the like the secrets of the kingdom. And so he's talking to the imp, which is like the little midget guy, whatever, lack of a better term. And he's telling him, he's like, hey, do you like riddles? And he's like, no, I don't. Do I have to hear one right now? And so the riddle is, you have three men and a swordsman, a swordsmaster. And the first man is a king, and the second man is a priest, and the third man is a rich man. He's got all the coins. And so each of those men tell the swordsmaster to cut the other two down. And so the riddle is which one dies and who holds the power. And so he's stumped or whatever, and he tells him, well, it's a trick. It's a shadow on the wall that it's not really the swordmaster. It's not really any of these three. It's whoever believes has the power. And so it's really a play of words and a play on belief systems, because it's whatever you believe has power. And so the power of belief systems really control your life. And so if you can get to the root of your belief systems, you can start to understand like what's supporting your life. And when you go into belief systems, right under that, you're going to find identity. And what's identity is supporting is really your values, and we create laws around how we support those identities. And if those identities are not supporting natural law, universal order, you will come to a state of discord and disharmony within yourself. And so it's the kind of conscious work I was kind of talking about. That goes straight down to the core of who you are, and you have to question why. And if I can give a context for someone who doesn't understand identification or identities, because we're really wrapping our system right now in the Western world around sexual identity, right? And people are really confused. So if you are defending something, you hold an identification towards it. And like, for instance, like if someone is at my fire station and someone said to me, hey, you're a thief, I would just be like, okay, cool, I'm not a thief. But if usually someone who's defending it is really the thief. So be careful and watch people when they defend things, because they're over-identifying with something and they're attached to something that is not true to their core essence of who they are. And so this is what can really challenge people, but it's also an opportunity of real growth when you start challenging what you identify with. So that's a really good little trick for yourself if you're looking to cultivate self-growth. Is, challenge yourself. Like, hey, am I being defensive around this when someone's talking to me? Am I holding an identification towards this, And I had to check myself many of times when I was defending stuff that really wasn't who I was. These were false identities that I carried that didn't mean shit.
I find that some of the more like relaxed and wise people I'm around almost don't talk. Like they just ask questions. They're just like curious about other people. They want to get other people to talk. And unless you pry something out of them, they're kind of not even privy to tell you what the hell is going on in their life. And it's interesting. Like, I didn't notice it before, I think, because I was just excited and happy to answer their questions. And the more I think the podcast has helped me too, is ask questions before thinking, get out of the educator mindset of like needing to perform an answer, and just getting into this like state of surrender and effortlessness, the change of belief. We're talking about these small, very subtle dials within our own brain that completely shift how we interact with others and how others interact with us. And I love talking about the space between things, right? Like the fascia is the space between the organs. The breath rate becomes our space between thoughts. Like as we start to, in my world, as we start to take hold of our breath rate, we start to slow down our triggered responses. We start to create that like little pocket of maybe I don't want to react that way. And my boyfriend, he is the king of like a 7-minute pause, which is incredibly nauseating when I first got to know him. But I realized that was just he needed to process. But at the same time of him processing, he also took dominant control of the conversation. And it would kind of reset, like all of us listen to him a little bit more because he talks less than most of us. And I call him the jellyfish because he has this, it's like an old man, like he's got old man energy. He's our age, he's 35, he looks 25, but he's got gray hair, thank God. And his field is like this big jellyfish, and you can kind of sense it when you're around him. He kind of
Is he born
slows
in
things
1989?
down. He was born in 1989.
He's a snake.
Yes,
And
which is
snakes
actually
are very wise.
interesting. Are
Snakes
snakes
are
good
very,
for
very wise.
horses?
Yeah, there could be some polarities there. I mean, horses are all about force and being rebels and stubborn, and snakes are more not about the drama. They're more like laid back, lazy. But it's because they're so wise, they will do things to not expend so much energy. They know when to use their energy correctly.
Yeah. Yeah, that describes Chris very well.
It's a snake, so.
Yeah, wow, thanks for that. That's him. And I find myself learning from him how to, like, if I go on vacation with my family, I'm in a state of giving, and I come home from that vacation kind of wiped. And Chris will go on the same vacation, talk a bit less, manage his energy a little bit differently, and come home nourished. And it's like we both went on the same vacation, but we're coming home with two very different batteries. So I've been learning from him how to like go out on a family night and not project into the field. And like, I don't think I've ever tried to articulate this. So thanks for hanging out with me while I'm trying to find the words.
Yeah, you're good.
But someone like me has always kind of like pushed a conversation or controlled in a way of making it joyful and merry, keeping it lighthearted, making it comedic, adding energy to the space. And what I'm realizing is that if I want to, everything comes to me effortlessly. Everything that I need comes to me effortlessly. I don't always need to amplify the energy. I don't always need to show up and like add electrons to the space. Sometimes the right move is to sit back and to like open your field and just receive all the beauty that's there, kind of surrender to the moment as it is, awkward or not awkward. Because that even, often when people are over talking, I can say this for myself, when I'm over talking, it's because I'm uncomfortable with some sort of like stillness or silence between us. And I've noticed that if I just shut the fuck up, there is a conversation that I would have never curated that like, wow, we went on a totally different journey together as a family. And sometimes it's too shallow. And then I want to like pop in a curious question to make it deeper, but sometimes it takes a tract. And I think I'm trying to illustrate how we are all navigating this energetic flux constantly, whether we're using words to like texturize it within ourselves. And that state of like joyousness that most of us are craving requires tools and knowledge about how to move through these fields, how to, hold back energy when you need to, how to give energy when you need to, when you're angry, when you're sad, how do you come back to the center and create stability? I mean, that's what my programs are for, is people like you that are really throwing your frequency from one extreme to another. How do we calibrate back to our silence and stillness? And I know we talked a lot about plant medicine, but I just had Dr. Edith Ubuntu on. She's in your part of the world in Cali. She has a blindfold visionary school. She's got 200 kids reading through blindfolds because she's helping them. Yeah, hell yeah. So her drug of choice is darkness, stillness, and fasting. So she describes her trips the way that I would describe a plant medicine journey, but she's doing it raw dogging it, just water and darkness.
Yeah, I mean, she's trailblazing the power of the senses and to give value to past like the stimulus we have in America and the stimulus we have and what we're leading up to with AI and all these attachments we carry with technology. And what she's really showing people is this capacity that we really have, that where technology is derived from the human body. And we have, if we don't use these senses, they will atrophy. But if you practice and you have guidance with how to understand what these senses are saying and what our capabilities are, then you can be this superhuman vessel, and there is no end to it. That's why, like, there's been a study done with these computer chips, and they got like a human neuron, like a brain neuron, right? And what they had done is that they could calculate from point A to point Z, whatever, with this computer chip, and it has a limitation. Yeah, it can calculate with within this quantum level of a computer, but what they found with the neuron is that it's limitless, and it's infinite. And so it adapts as well at the same time, which is crazy. Like, there is no end point with this neuron, and that's just one small tiny neuron with something. And imagine with you're in a human organism with whatever, how many neurons there are, trillions, let's say trillions, right? And
I
if you
think it's
can,
like 3 billion, but to be honest, I think
okay,
that's
cool.
like who counted them?
Right. So with that concept, right, now you have 3 billion neurons. What can you do with that? It's infinite. And so what she's showing you essentially is like she's giving you this one sliver of what's available for people. And there's also there's schools in Russia who does the same thing. They teach these children how to cultivate their psychic skills, and so they'll run around the playground with these blindfolds on, and they're throwing the ball at each other. And so what they had learned is once they quiet the mind, you're able to see past vision. So the inner vision is capable of modulating the field, and you can read books, you can understand different colors. And so that's the thing, it's infinite. Our capabilities are infinite, but we've been told and taught since birth that we are these limited, fragile carbon versions of what we see the human organism as. And then on top of that, we have this belief system around our health and around our vitality to trust a person in a white lab coat, and that person's going to tell you everything about your health, and then you have to believe that person because that person's telling the truth. So I think right now it's like we're exploding off of what's true, what our belief systems are around health and the medical system. And it's become disturbing to a collective. And that's why we're at this fucking war right now within politics, because we have one side that's saying one thing, you have the other side that's still being asleep to these lies. And what I want people to recognize is to see the infiniteness and the limitlessness of the human bioorganism that we are, and to chase that and chase that curiosity. But did I tell you about that documentary called "This In Search of the Superhuman"?
Yeah, and I looked everywhere for it. Can you like tell me where it was?
I'll have to find the link. I'll have to
Okay.
find the link and send it to you.
I went on a good journey and I was like, damn, I found a trailer for it. So that was all I got.
Okay. Yeah, that's amazing. And that's in that documentary, they talk about those children in Russia that are learning these psychic skills.
A couple books that have come to mind as you and I have been chatting is like The Masters of the Far East, the Anastasia Ringing Cedars series in Russia, like that was based in Russia. Just like good little mental trips that people can take to open their minds to this. Do you have a couple on the top of your mind potentially?
You talking about books? I think people, if they studied Zen Buddhism, it's really amazing. And people hear about Zen Buddhism, like they're challenged by it because it takes you out of Western philosophy, or even like Greek philosophy, and because they go beyond simple concepts to make you really challenge it's full of riddles, and you have to like read the story, the parable, like 3 or 4 times to get the point. And those are great books. I mean, I started off understanding and studying Zen Buddhism when I read a book called Hagakure, and it's called the Book of the Samurai. And so half the book is about how samurais learn to be these sword masters, and also what they learn for the most part is Zen Buddhism. And most of the book is like these short stories on samurais and they're written documents that were translated into English from like I don't know however long it was from when the samurais were around, but that's a really good book because we want to get into a state. Like your state says everything, like your frequency, right? But even going into like more like esoteric knowledge, there's a book called Bringers of the Dawn. That's a really amazing book. I don't know if you ever heard of that book by Barbara Marciniak.
No, Is it about the Golden Dawn? Like, what is it?
That is, I think the Golden Dawn is the first book.
Okay, cool.
Bringers of the Dawn it's a channeled book by a woman named Barbara Marciniak, and she basically is channeling information from the cosmos. And when you tell people about channeled books, it's really strange. But when you read the book, you read the information, it's almost as if you are remembering this information. And so there's different practices. It talks about different type of visualizations you can do to enlarge your biofield. It talks about like your chakras, your energy centers, and how intricately orchestrated these systems are designed and how they operate. And so it's a very, very complex book, but really amazing. It talks about like really like what the human race is all about. It talks about like where we are at in human evolution. It's a really amazing book. So it will blow your mind for sure.
I've read a couple channeled, like 6 channeled books. Like My Soul's Plan is one of them. That's the first one that comes to mind. And all of them have some incredible truths. So I always like to just keep an open mind, read it and like absorb what you want. So thank you for sharing that. I am curious, have you been training the Mighty Breath? Have you tried that?
I have done. I have not. I went through like the lectures and then I
Okay.
just fell off with the Mighty
Yeah.
Breath. But
No,
I do
that's
my
okay.
breath work though with the fascial flow still.
Perfect. I'm happy that you're en route. And then how has the Avasia been? Because you're one of the few clients that I've had that has one. So I'm curious, is it confusing? Is it you noticing a change? Is it too soon to tell?
It's interesting. I would say I am using it intuitively. So I use it on my back, and then it's been really helpful for that. And then I can feel my nervous system getting recalibrated with it. And then I use it on some pretty dense scar tissue points on my leg or
Good.
legs. And so I place them on certain meridian points too. And so I know where those channels like just get funneled into. So I'll put them on those areas. I would say I definitely have seen results with it, but it's not like a like, oh my God, I felt this much relief. It's like it's tapered like each day, you know?
Yeah. I wake up in the morning and I'll drain my lymph with it, kind of like
Oh,
before I even get out of bed. And I have a lot of scar tissue here because of the way that my neck is shaped. There's a ton of tension through here that I have to consciously like work on. And it's been a game changer for me. My tonsils, after I used it, my tonsils started to, they've always been swollen. They shrunk in half. And there's so much more fluidity now that I have, like when I palpate up here,
mm,
there's more balance. So I'm just happy that you have one. I'm noticing that my family members, if I use it on them a little bit and just get them familiar with it, they'll ask for it now. They'll be like, hey, do you mind, just like a 20 minutes on my back or on my arm? And I like that it is releasing natural painkillers within our cells. So
mm.
it's like good for the ouchies like that come up. So don't be afraid to kind of test it on your loved ones a little bit, because I think the frequencies talk to all of us. It becomes just another tool in the tool chest for us.
Yeah, I just the different settings, I think I had a hard time. Like, I don't know when to use the acute setting versus the RSI setting.
Yeah, I go from relaxed to RSI. The acute is where the tissue is like cemented. So some of those spots that you're talking about in your leg, the frequency is a little tighter.
Mm,
I highly recommend checking out their YouTube. They have an unlisted channel that has all these protocols. It's a little boring. So if you want, you can be like, hey, what's good for back? And I'll shuffle through it and find the back one. But the acute is like a very tight vibration,
mm,
not good on brand new scars because it'll rip the scar tissue out. So
mm,
like that's the key there. And then it's moving some of the fluid magnetically. So when you go to your spine, you want to do the left side and then the right side, and then down the spine, you always want to pull down. We don't want to like cross over there. So I'll send you some stuff, but it's a powerful little tool, and I'm happy that you have one because it's going to help somebody like you who's built muscle on top of scar tissue.
yeah.
It's going to assist.
Yeah, that's what's been so challenging is the years of, let's say 20 years of scar tissue. And I've noticed when I used to place the ball on my calves and my calves would just tense up around the ball when I'm breathing through it and I can't get anywhere because it'll just cramp up my whole leg and I got to stop. But when I used that machine, what happened was it broke up the scar tissue underneath the muscle. And now my calf just lays on that thing and I can get heavy with it and allow the ball just to kind of do its work with the actual bands. So I think at this time I'm at like 30 days total with the fascial flow. So I
Nice.
did 5 days a week, right? 7 weeks, and I'm at a full 30 days. So now I'm feeling that I'm pressuring that compression into the actual bands, which is where the real work is. Am I correct?
Yeah, and to be honest, you're still kind of in the middle of it. Like I
Mm,
think people really start to feel the results 6 months in, which is like tough to sell
it's
because it's
tough.
like you're going to feel the relief quick, but then you're going to gain this understanding of how much damage is done that we all like cuz we don't palpate. We don't realize that our quads are just they have turned to concrete
Yeah.
and that a lot of these little side issues that people are dealing with in their knees or in their hip is because of this concrete is holding back nourishment and flow. And it's just going to take some time. So thanks for being with me in this process. And I think really guiding a path for your community in so many ways. I respect the channel that you've built for the things that you talk about. It's been awesome to have you as a client. And I enjoyed the first podcast that we did together. I look forward to the next one because the divine masculine and the divine feminine don't show up very well online together. And what I've
Oh,
seen, there's a lot of people on this side and a lot of people on this side. And I think you and I could be a bit fearless in kind of charting a different way, like in a more spiritual way. Like we don't have shamans in America. We don't have our spiritual gurus here. But we have some good health fitness coaches that are asking deep questions that I think can probe the deep with people in a playful way. And I see that in you, and I'm incredibly grateful.
oh, thank you. Like I told you before, like I came down this road kicking and screaming, and it was only through my own desperation that I was able to change. Like there's a great quote by a guy named Brett Andrews. He wrote the book Iboga, The Root of All Healing. And in the beginning of the book, he says the pain of change is greater than the pain of change. Wait, I messed that up.
Of staying, yeah. Okay, so the pain of staying is worse than the pain of
Yes,
change.
so I fucked that up totally.
That's
So it's
okay.
like when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change. So that's when change does happen. And so for myself, like I was just an asshole, just reaching for just addiction and reaching for, a sad little boy that was inside me. And once I was able to witness that within myself, that's when things started to move. And, I like to refer the divine masculine and divine feminine more so as yin and yang energy, because we carry those energies within us and they govern our entire organism. And so because divine feminine, divine masculine has been like a weird, I don't know.
Another
I think
polarity.
it is a polarity, but it's one and the same. Like there's a Zen master will tell you like, hey, look at the yin and yang symbol, like look at it and tell me what do you see. And people will say, oh, I see white and black. Cool, like those are polarity signs, right? And it's the yin and the yang together, but what you're missing is that it's a circle and it's unifying the whole. And so like I think if we understand that, like you need both of those things. And that's why this whole very strange identification with like non-binary and I'm this, I'm that with your sexuality, it's you're going against universal order with that because of the fact you need both to cohabitate with oneself on a physical form. So if you overdo one thing, you'll be out of balance. And so you're going to find some type of biological imbalance with that. So I want people to take that into context when they're thinking about, whatever, taking all these hormones and things like that. You need natural hormones within you to collaborate together to create this beautiful unification that was orchestrated, tapered for you since birth. People may not like that, but just saying.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay. We're here to just ask questions and we're allowed to change our minds and we're allowed to think differently. We're allowed to all the things. This is consciousness expanding and unfolding.
But I totally agree with you though. Like, there is a point right now where people who do trailblaze things and different viewpoints and perspectives are so important right now and vital within America, and how we can transform old paradigms. And I was telling you before, like, I take a sledgehammer and break old paradigms. They don't work, because those things, they are crumbling right now before our feet, and we feel these seismic shifts happening, and it is disturbing for all of us because we have to do it together. And so for those who see that the change is upon us and they want to see great change, those are great leaders.
Yep. I think great leaders must organize. Organize perception, awareness, goals, playfulness. I think that they'll chart the direction that we all need to head. Right now, the direction that I see is go internal. Go internal, go internal. Listen deeper, feel more. Silence, darkness, stillness. I think all of the answers that we need collectively are right in there, right sitting in the body, loud, waiting to be heard. John, before we wrap it up today, is there is actually a frame of mind I wanted to quiz you on, like 5 questions, and they're going to be very much in the shallow end compared to how this conversation went. But I think it's useful information nonetheless. Let's just say you wake up tomorrow and your back hurt. What is the first question that you ask yourself to start to mend it?
I would say, what is the information that's available to me at this time that's in this space?
Okay. Then what's the second thing that you do after you listen to that answer?
It depends what comes up. Is it an emotion? Is it a thought? Is it an attachment? I literally just did this today when I woke up in the morning, was driving home from work, because I was driving in traffic after I worked, and I was like an hour in traffic. And so I started to feel some pain, and I was like, okay, I am acknowledging this pain, but I'm acknowledging it from my awareness. And so as I did that, the pain just disappeared, because all it wanted was some type of acknowledgement. I also ask, so I always tell people, if you ask the right questions, you get the right answers. So the information that was available to me is, what does my body need right now? And it needs rest. So that's the information. As soon as I got that information, I just acknowledged it and then accepted it. And then it just poof, vanished.
I love when softness for self works out. What is the greatest piece of advice that you have for someone?
I'd say follow trust. Trust is the key to the universe. And as you learn to trust and to stop controlling, it will become a beacon within yourself.
That's a mic drop moment. It's so beautiful. John, thanks for joining us today on the Gamma Seeker broadcast. It won't be the last time that that you guys see him. He's like a true delight. He also has a podcast called Grabs Lives Podcast. Please check it out. Full of useful and wonderful information for an audience that's a little bit more male than mine, potentially. If you resonated with this, please check out the show notes and follow John for more. John, thank you so much for today.
Yeah, of course. And if anyone knows firefighters, first responders, like, definitely cue them into the podcast, because we have first responders suicide crisis that we deal with right now, and there's not much being done. So I'm looking to find solutions for this issue.
Amen, brother. You are the solution.
Thank you very much.